Hi everyone! So today we are going to be busting up some plants, and by busting up some plants I mean we are going to be propagating some plants via division. Now I have touched on propagating via division in several videos in the past, but I've never actually done a dedicated video for you guys on it. We've never actually divided any of my plants personally before. I did buy an Aglaonema for the sole purpose of dividing it in a video a while back, but it was just a very brief part of a vlog video. So I really want to take you through just this process dedicated today. And interestingly enough, I have pulled, let's see, 4 plants that we are potentially going to divide. So future Drea from a few hours from now here. So I wanted to cut in and let you guys know up front that we are actually only going to divide 2 of the plants that I brought out today. We aren't even actually going to look at 2 of the other ones because honestly, this video took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to. But I did want to divide 2 at least because I did 2 different methods and I want you to see that both methods will work. So I will be filming updates on those plants over the course of the next 4 weeks, and then I will give you a full update video so you can see how each of the plants reacted to each of the different methods. But just wanted to let you know that up front, but let's get back to it. But the first 2 plants we are going to look at, we are definitely going to be dividing these. However, the funny thing is this right here is my Ctenanthe setosa, and I was not planning on doing anything with this plant today. I actually am planning on filming another video right after this that is just repotting a bunch of plants that I should have repotted like, I don't know, 6 to 7 months ago, and I didn't do it. And I was pulling this plant out because I suspected that it probably is pretty root bound and just needs to be repotted, but I didn't want to divide it because I just don't feel like it needs it yet. But when I got it out, you guys, I started removing some of what you can see here in the middle was just where leaves had died off and everything. And I was thinking that it was kind of odd that it was only in the middle of this plant that I was really having a lot of leaf loss, and was just kind of like, okay, that's kind of odd. But then I noticed, you guys, when I was pulling out all of this dead stuff in the center, there's a fabric plug around the roots. I had no idea there was a fabric plug around the roots until I started pulling some of this stuff off. So let's see, like, if I tug this off here. Okay, so this is totally dead. But you can see those were roots on there, and this was one offshoot, so one plant shooting out because this is a rhizome-based plant. But you can see this has died off. So I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see here. Hopefully you can see right here is the fabric plug. If I give it a little tug there, there's some of the fabric right there that has come off. I cannot believe I didn't notice that before on this plant, you guys. But honestly, this is the first time I've ever seen that on a prayer plant, family plant in general. Like, I've never seen that on any of my other Ctenanthes. I do own 3, including this one. I've never seen that on any of my Calathea, my Marantas, nothing. So that threw me for a loop, but that fabric plug probably explains why everything in the center that was inside of that fabric plug was the first thing to die off. But I am pretty sure this plant is desperately in need of being repotted because I have been having more leaf loss in general, and now that I know there's that fabric plug, we definitely need to repot this. And so I think we are going to divide it because in order to get to that fabric plug, I'm gonna have to like take a bunch of dirt off anyway, and all of these new growth points are all outside the fabric plug, so I'm gonna have to work around that, so we might as well just go ahead and divide it. But let's go ahead and get to it, but I do need to grab my snips real quick because I might need them to help get through this and when we get to that plug. I think I've got everything we need. Just a reminder too, if you do see some leaves with holes on them on this plant, there are quite a few. Theo, this is his new favorite plant to chew on when he feels like it's dinner time, even though it's not dinner time, to try to get my attention. So yeah, not very happy about that. But I'm just gonna give this pot a squeeze and see if I can get it out that way. I did water this plant fairly recently, I think maybe like 3 or 4 days ago, which is always not ideal. But if I need to, what I can do is just moisten down the forest floor mix that I already have prepped over here, which is what this plant needs. I can just wet some of this down, dampen it so that it's about the kind of moisture level that this plant's already at if I need to. I have a feeling it's gonna be pretty root bound. I have had this plant for, I think it'll be 2 years in a few weeks, and I have never repotted it, which prayer plant family plants, you guys, they get root bound pretty dang quick. You really ought to be checking them once a year. They really do root very quickly. Okay, yes. This for sure needs to be repotted at the very least. You can see all of those roots. Oh, it's bad, you guys, it's bad. That right there is a whole rhizome. So this is what we're talking about when we say a rhizome. So just a reminder, a rhizome is just a modified stem that grows underground. So this rhizome's been swirling around in here and then sending up from parts of it that you can't see, sending up these new offshoots here. But this is gonna be kind of a pain in the butt to break up here. So, and I'm just gonna make a mess of my counter today, you guys. Like, it's just going to be what it's going to be today. We're going to do our best. So normally, you guys, I've told you in the past, like when we're doing root division, typically I would say just get a knife, make a clean cut through all of this, separate it out, and you can do that. Sometimes, I mean, they're gonna throw a fit no matter what after you do this a little bit, so don't freak out if you start having like leaf loss after doing something like this. Anyways, what I'm getting at is I might wanna see if I can't kind of just unwrap some of this gently first so that I can get some more of this soil out, and then we might be able to just kind of pull it apart. Either way, we're going to be damaging some roots, but really what I'm more interested in would be trying to get this rhizome unwrapped, but it's gonna have roots coming off of it, probably on that back side. So trying to pull it off directly is going to cause an issue. But look over here. So this is one thing where this might be the easiest offshoot when dividing. So always check around the edge of the pot first, because here's where you can see where from that rhizome, this shot up and grew up into its own plant. That spot would be a good spot to try to start separating it. But once again, at a certain point, you're gonna have to cut through some roots and the rhizome. And just remember, cutting through the rhizome is not like a huge deal, you guys. It is just part of the stem. So your nodes on a plant like this are underground on this rhizome. So this rhizome has nodes. There's one right there. They're not as obvious, but there's little like bulges along the lines here. So it's just like when we propagate a plant that's not rhizome based, we cut between nodes. So cutting between a rhizome like this is not that big of a deal. All right, you guys, so this soil is pretty dense, especially after having been in here for 2 years, and it is just like soil with perlite, it seems. So I am gonna go ahead and just do what I have described to you guys in the past and just make some clean cuts with a knife, and then we're gonna try to kind of sort things out from there. With this many roots, okay, so yes, when I make a clean cut with a knife, I will probably sever some roots completely, potentially, making multiple cuts, which is fine. The plant will recover. I do want to try to remove anything that looks severed before I pot it back up, but I think that's just what I'm gonna have to do. But there are so many roots that there should be plenty of healthy non-severed roots to still keep this plant alive and getting reestablished when we pot it back up. And just a quick PSA, because it's been a hot minute since I've done it, for anybody watching this, I do have something called essential tremors, which causes my hands to shake. If you do see me shaking, that's why, and my apologies. So I have my very large knife and I am going to go ahead, since I really want to get to this fabric plug up here and this little plantlet is just over here by itself, I'm going to go ahead and just make a cut right through here. And if you can get it in just one go without sawing, that is ideal, but in my experience, usually I have to do a little sawing, although this one's going pretty well. I'm going to try and pull this one rhizome out of the way, since I don't want to cut through it if I don't have to. Although trying to hold this plant steady and not do that is a little bit tricky. There we go. Sometimes I wish I had somebody here to help me, you guys, but I make do. Okay. One cut down. So now that we've done that, what we can do is just try to kind of pull apart here. So I have seen people in videos before just rip apart. You can do that. I mean, essentially you're doing the same thing as cutting with a knife, right? You're breaking the roots one way or another. But because this is still so thick over here, I'm pretty sure I am just gonna have to make another cut. So let's go ahead and do that. And once again, like ideally, I think I'm gonna go, I know I'm gonna tear some roots trying to unwrap this rhizome, but ideally I don't wanna have to cut through this one if I don't have to, because it's healthy and it's attached to one of these over here, so I wanna keep it intact, if that makes sense. So we're just gonna kind of pull it out of the way, and then I think I'm gonna cut right here. Although, like I said, I'm gonna try to keep it out of the way, but easier said than done when it's just me here, but we'll figure it out. This side is a little bit tougher to cut through here, but I am also, it's a shallower cut, so I'm not using as much of the knife. There we go. Okay. So now let's just see if we can pull this whole piece out or if I'm gonna have to cut in the middle. I think I'm gonna have to cut in the middle because it still feels pretty snug up there. So I'm just gonna cut between the dead parts right there. A lot of resistance for how little roots I'm seeing there. Interesting. Huh. All right, there we go. So we have now successfully divided out one plant. This is going to try to fall over, so let me set it in its pot and see if that will help. It's still going to want to fall over. Okay, there we go. All right, so we've got one plant out. You can see here we did lose some roots in that process. That's fine. Like I said, just make sure you get rid of any loose roots, or as many as you can find. If you just die off in the soil, it's not that big of a deal. All right, so back here is where we kind of want to address what might be severed root. So I'm just going to do that real quickly. And then like I said, we should have plenty left that are still healthy and attached to this plant. You can see there's the edge of the rhizome that we just cut there. So as long as we've got a lot of healthy roots coming from that, we should be good. I'm gonna try to work more of this soil off real quick though, so you guys can get a better look at what we're working with. All right, you guys, so I did go ahead and take this over to the sink, and I got myself a little bit wet in the process, and run this under the kitchen sprayer because I wanted to get as much of the soil off just so I can give you guys a better idea of what's going on with the plant. But now what I'm gonna do is gently work through this root mass and try to remove anything like I just pulled off that's like completely severed. And when you guys are doing this, it's easiest to kind of start at the bottom because almost always the outside bottom section where you cut is not going to still be attached. So always start at the bottom outside and just slowly work your way up, just pulling gently. And I'm just kind of like loosening up some first. I'm not severely tugging to get to the other ones. And if I don't feel it giving away, like that one just gave away easily, if I don't feel that, like that came off easily, but like for example here, that's not coming off easily, that's not coming off easily. So I'm not going to mess with those because they may actually still be attached. Nobody said propagating by division was not time consuming, you guys. It's very time consuming, but honestly, if you know, okay, the main reason I divide plants like this is because I want them to stay a certain size. So if that is your reasoning, let's say you don't have room where you have it living to take it up to a larger pot size, if that's your reason for wanting to divide and propagate, then my advice to you is not to let it get this root bound before you do it. In fact, don't let it get hardly root bound at all before you do it because it will make it a lot easier to divide it. This just was a case where I just waited way too long to repot this plant, period. So it's a little bit more difficult, but I'm just going to keep working through this. Okay, guys, I think I finally got all that other root off here. As you can see, it is quite a bit, but just remember, this was probably all attached to these other plantlets in this pot, but we still have a decent number of roots here attached to what is actually 3 plants. Hopefully you guys can see that. 1, 2, 3 right here. You could potentially separate these out more, but I don't feel the need to. This would be a cute little starter plant for somebody if we pot it up separately, which I'm not 100% what we're doing yet with this, but we will get to that. And you don't have to go this far with it, you guys, but I wanted you guys to be able to see better like what you're really working with. Now, this was a lot. So once again, hopefully you haven't let your plant get this root bound before you try to divide it. But if you do leave some roots like this attached that are completely severed, it shouldn't be a problem because it's just going to die off in the soil and become organic matter. It's not like it's a case of like what we call root rot, because like roots can just like die off, you know, they get severed like if you're digging around outside around your plants and stuff, and it doesn't kill the plant. So you should be fine, but ideally you want to remove like as much as you can, but you don't necessarily have to go to this extreme is all I was going to say. But this is more than enough. Like if you think about if you were doing a plant in water to pot up, this would be plenty of roots to then pot it up if it was a propagation, and we are technically propagating right now. And like I said, and as you saw, these plants root crazy fast, get root bound crazy fast, so this plant should take off fine. But like I said, I'm not sure if we're going to pot it up separately or not yet. I want to get the rest of this plant figure it out and get this fabric plug off, because what I might end up doing once I get that plug off is just combining these back and moving that one closer into the middle where all that stuff died that was in the plug, and it'll just bring the plant in a little bit more, but I just haven't fully decided. So I'm just gonna continue getting this out of here and cleaned up. I'm just gonna cut right here. And let's see if we can just pull it apart this time without having to cut. We're gonna cut. When in doubt, just cut. There we go. All right, so there's 2 more there. And looks like this dead one over here was outside of the plug. All right, I think what I'm gonna do, since all of this is dead over here, is I'm just gonna go ahead, I think all of that's dead, yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and try to cut right through here so we can get this plug out. Oh, I'm so sorry, plant, but you're going to be so much happier when you are not dealing with a plug with rotted roots in it. All right, so this plant, here. This guy is not going to want to stay up. Hold on one second. Let's see if I can wedge those pots in here to keep it upright, and we'll take the soil and maybe prop it up. Let me stay put. Okay. This plant is going to have the hardest time surviving here, but it's not necessarily because of all the cuts we just made. It's because it was so close to that fabric plug that it was trying to grow roots in the middle. Hopefully you guys can see the fabric ring there. Telling you guys. Let me find something to prop this up. Okay. I think it's going to stay now. So anyway, so there probably wasn't as many roots on this anyway. That's probably why, like, also everything around this was dying right. So there's a good chance that this was getting ready to die off. And as you can see, this is one of the ones that I've been losing a lot of leaves on lately. So, and this one's turning yellow. So this probably was already dying off because those roots just had nowhere to go with that fabric plug there. So see if I can get this to where you can see this. Well, I'm just gonna start tearing the plug off. So you can see there's like old fabric there. And ideally what they tell you is these plugs are supposed to biodegrade over time. It's not supposed to take 2 years for it to do it. And it has not even fully biodegraded. Somebody told me they reached out to, I think it was Costa Farms, and they said there's like a whatever 0.0, 2.0, 3.0, whatever version of the plugs that supposedly people are using now that are supposed to biodegrade more quickly. I don't know that I trust it. I would still try to remove it if you find one on your plants. Plus you have no way of knowing which version of it is when you buy a plant. So yeah, but let's see how much rootage we are actually working with that's attached to this plant. Because you can see here's a bundle of rhizome, but I don't think it's actually attached to this part that's still alive, but I could be wrong. But I'm gonna go rinse this off under the sink so we can see a little better where everything's attached. Okay guys, so I want to show you this first. Here's the last bit of that fabric there that I pulled off. This, that was totally, had nothing alive on it, still had roots attached to it and that are healthy, but you can see they were probably feeding the other plants that were attached where we severed here. So likely nothing would happen with this. Now, if you wanted to, you could now take this and put it in water. Maybe we should just do it just to experiment. All right, I might do it. Put it in water to see if maybe it will eventually start to push something new, or you, I don't know, well, you could go straight to soil, but it doesn't have any leaves to support it yet. And I kind of feel like putting it in water, there's still fabric on there. Ugh. Putting it in water, this is so much fabric wrapped up in there. I'm just gonna trash it. But you could potentially put it in water. I feel like when you don't have leaves, sometimes it's a little bit safer from a not rotting it standpoint to put it in water first till you start to see some new growth start to happen, if that makes sense. Now here's the alive plant that we separated. Not a lot of roots, not as many as on that other one we just saw, but the other one, remember, was technically 3 plants. Theo is getting in the trash can, you guys. 1 second. Theo, stop. I swear, just being a little heathen today. Okay, so what was I saying? Not as many roots as on the one we just separated, but remember that was 3 plants. Technically, this was 2. They are still attached via the rhizome in the middle. Well, you can see under here. This is just an offshoot off of that rhizome. So think about it like when a vine shoots off the side of an existing vine on like a philodendron. Same thing in a rhizome-based plant. So even though this one seems to be completely dead, not producing any new growth, because it's still attached to this one, the roots that are attached to that one will help serve this one. So I'm not going to, even though this is like dead looking, I mean, I'll cut it off later with my snips, but I'm not gonna like separate it off of this. There's still a little bit of fabric on here, you guys. I'm telling you. Ugh. All right, I think that was the last bit of fabric. Okay, so we've successfully got 2 plants separated here. If I wanted to truly like divide this and have this to sell, have a plant to like sell or give somebody else, I would probably plant these together because that looks a little bit fuller and a little bit nicer. You guys, when did the mic fall down? I don't know how long that was sitting there like that, but it's been resolved now. I'm telling you, all kinds of weird things happening today. Okay. I don't know if we're gonna pot that up yet or not. Let's see how we're looking with everything else. So ideally now, I don't particularly want to necessarily mess too much with what I have left on these 2, other than to possibly remove some of those completely severed roots. Now, let's see what we think. So if we were to pot these back up together, I mean, it's a little bit awkward because there'll be like a big gap, but remember, rhizome-based plants, so should fill itself back in. I could do this direction. I just feel awkward doing it that direction. Not that I couldn't, I mean, we could. I mean, maybe that's what we'll do. And then this is about like the width it was when I first bought it. And this is next to my TV and it is getting a little bit wide. So maybe that's what we'll do, you guys, is that way I can keep it in the same size pot. So I think we'll just pot these up together and then we will truly propagate these, meaning that we will pot them up in another pot and I will give that to somebody or sell it. So let's just go ahead and get those taken care of first. I don't know. No, I better finish cleaning these up. I'll see y'all in the blink of an eye. All right, you guys, so here we can see this part of the plant has probably the most roots, but it is the most plants. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5 there. So this is pretty good. So we're gonna get this potted back up first before we pot up the ones that I'm going to either give away or sell to somebody. Let me get this back out of the way. Okay, and like I said, we're just gonna go right back into the same pot. There's dirt all over the floor. It's driving me crazy, but that's okay. We are using the forest floor mix once again, and that's probably another good thing for why I got all the soil off of this is because it wasn't already in my forest floor mix. So ideally, getting as much of that other soil off in this case would be good. But we're just gonna go ahead and get a little bit in the bottom here. Now the next plant we're gonna be dividing though is already in my forest floor mix. I have repotted it once before. So on that one, we are not gonna be removing all of the substrate because like I said before, I want you guys to have like an idea of how each plant does doing each process, like removing everything versus just leaving some dead, or dead, not dead, severed roots that will die on, etc., so that you can see that both methods do work and also see how the plants recover with each one. Okay, let's see here. I'm kind of wondering if I shouldn't put both of them backwards like I was showing you guys before, so that the new roots can grow towards, on the inside can grow towards the edge, if that makes sense. I might do that, I don't know. I'm being all kinds of crazy today, you guys. So I think I'm gonna do that. I think we're gonna do it like this, but I wanna try to get them kind of even in terms of how they're standing up here. That one large rhizome that's still intact in there is trying to push the plant to one side. So let me see if I can't get that swirled a little bit tighter in there. Once again, this is where having somebody to help me would be nice, but we'll figure it out. Okay, I think what we're gonna do, just so I can get this one a little bit more stable, is I'm gonna fill in a little bit over here on this side first before we add those in on the other side. Hopefully that will help a little bit. Make sure our roots are actually down in the pot. Okay. I think we'll do this one. Go down roots. So complicated. Get a little filled in on this side first. Try to hold that in place. Okay. This one's still trying to like move over where I don't want it, but that's okay. And we'll get this one with its big old long rhizome. We'll try to get this one with its big old long rhizome down in here. Okay. And just get all of this filled back in. And I might just have to kind of mess with them positioning wise and everything as I'm filling in to try to get them to stay kind of positioned how I want them and not flop over. And while I'm doing this, another reason I knew this plant potentially needed to be repotted today, I'm so sorry you guys can't see me very well, but is because the leaves were kind of starting to cup. Hopefully you can see that there. Even like right after I watered it, they were staying that way. So that was a good indicator to me that it wasn't able to successfully take up and use the water the way it needed to. That and the fact that it had like the yellowing dying off leaves were my biggest indicators on this one. Okay, this one wants to be a pain in the tuchus, but that's all right. These held up over here. And I do find that all of my prayer plant family plants really just prefer the forest floor mix over anything else, but they are moisture loving plants, so you can do like just my basic mix, which is just like 5 parts premium potting soil with 1 part perlite. But I do find that that chunkier mix, they just seem to like it better. All right, let's see if it's going to stay upright enough for me to rotate it here without flopping all over the place. This one over here is just driving me crazy. And I think it's attached to the main plant, so let's just get this one secured first that keeps trying to flop out. If I have to, I can stake them up, or I can use some plant Velcro to just kind of hold them together until they get more established again, which is what I might have to do. We'll just see. And after I water this, which I'm going to do, it'll help push some more of the substrate down in there, which will hopefully help to get it to stabilize a little bit more as well. And I could have gone, like, tried to plant them like a little bit deeper maybe, but like if you go too deep, it's kind of like burying the crown of a plant that's not rhizome based. You risk like rotting like right here. So I didn't want to go too deep, but this one may just need to go a little bit deeper. But I'm probably gonna go grab my plant Velcro here and try to get these a little bit more stabilized. So give me 1 second. Okay. So we're just gonna use this to kind of keep them upright while they're getting reestablished, and then it should be fine after that. My scissors. So I don't want it to be like too tight or anything. We just want it kind of loose, but enough to keep it from flopping over. And it doesn't really matter if it's like what position it is in per se, as long as it's just keeping them upright. But let me rearrange up here at the top because that'll help as well, so they can just lean on each other, try to stay in position. Poor little baby one is just like kind of flopping around, but it'll be okay. It'll be, like I said, it'll be a little bit better once we get it watered. So just a little bit more here and we should be good to go. A little gap over here we need to fill in. All right, I think she is looking pretty good. I am gonna go water her down real quick and we will pot up the propagation we took. Okay, I got some more of our forest floor mix mixed up, and I'm thinking we are going to go into a 4-inch, but let's just see. We might need slightly bigger, but I feel like a 6-inch is gonna be like, well, it's definitely gonna have to be bigger than that. Damn, I wish I had like a 5-inch. I might have a 5-inch. Let me check. Okay, it's not a 5-inch, it's a 4.5-inch, but I also grabbed a 6-inch, so let's just see what we think. So it's gonna be like, need to be repotted pretty quickly if I put it into this 4.5-inch. That's why I was saying I really wish I had a 5, but I also just don't want to overwhelm it necessarily with soil since we just put it through what we put it through. But I guess that's not that bad, you guys, right? Yeah, I think that's okay. We'll just go into this 6-inch. All right, so same thing. All right, so while we're doing this, the next plant that we are going to be dividing is actually my Schismatoglottis. And this is another plant that Theo has been chewing on, which is part of the reason the ends of some of the older leaves look like crap. He has recently stopped doing it more on that plant because this is now his preferred plant to chew on, for whatever reason. But that plant has just, I mean, it's been growing so fast the entire time I've had it, and it is just busting out of its pot at this point, and so it needs to be divided. But like I said, it is already in the forest floor mix, so we don't have to worry about getting everything off of it. And also because this is a chunkier mix, you guys, even if you wanted to remove it, like, it should be a lot easier. And honestly, it should be a lot easier to kind of separate it just in general in a chunky mix like this. Of course, I say that, but we'll find out in a second when we actually do it. But that plant in particular, I feel like is probably gonna recover maybe a little bit better and more quickly than this one. I feel like it's just a little bit less sensitive than a Ctenanthe is, if that makes sense. Let's see, I already lost track of which plant's which here. Try to put like a little bit of space between them. Not that I necessarily have to, you know. Doesn't really matter. But once again, these Schismatoglottis plants are very, very fast growing, just like Ctenanthe and Calathea, but even more so, like even at a quicker rate. And just a reminder, the Schismatoglottis has been living in a north-facing window the entire time I've had it. And this will be the second time I've had to repot it. And I think I've had it a year and a half, maybe. I mean, so fast. I can't even imagine like how fast it would be if I had it in a brighter location, like an east-facing window. But yeah, so fast growing, so fast growing. But it is also one of those plants that I kind of want to keep in the same pot and keep it the same size. So that's the other reason that I want to divide it today versus just taking it up into a larger pot. All right, almost got this all the way filled in here. Just a little bit more, and hopefully we'll be able to get away without having to Velcro this one, but it is less plantlets, if you will. So it should have a slightly easier time staying upright. A little more over here and a little bit more in the middle of them there. I may also have gotten these a little bit lower, not much, in the pot. Alrighty, good to go. I'm gonna go give this one a water down and grab the Schismatoglottis and mix up our last batch of soil for the day. Okay, so good news is this plant actually does need to be watered. And it actually needed to be watered so bad yesterday, and originally I was going to try to film this for you guys yesterday, but stuff came up. It was so bad that I had to drizzle a little water in it to keep it happy overnight. I do see that we have a flower happening in here, which is the first one I've had on here. You see that right there. Looks a little damaged. I wonder if Theo got in there. Oh, it's broken. Theo probably messed with it. I'm telling you guys, look at this. Like, that's Theo. Like I said, a lot of these leaf ends that don't look good, it's from Theo. The newer leaves, like these, look pretty decent. But one of the reasons I also knew it was really time to repot this and potentially divide it was because you see how these leaves are like cupping right here? Hopefully that is on screen, I'm telling you. Let me bend this down. How it's like cupping, it's not staying flat. I'm starting to see that more and more on new leaves coming in, which once again is a sign that it's not able to take up the water as much and use it the way that it needs to. Probably because, you guys, look at this. You see those big old rhizomes swirling around in there? Like, this was, I think it was like this big around when I bought it. I think it was in like a 4-inch, and it was pretty full in the 4-inch, and I took it up to this. I don't remember exactly when. If I have it marked, I will flash it on screen for you. And it has already put out so many new plantlets. Like, just look at all those, and a lot of them are right here on the edge. So my plan here is just kind of to remove some of these ones from the edge and pot them up separately to sell or give away to somebody, and then repot up just the center ones so that I can keep this in the same size pot. But let's go ahead and get it out of here. I mean, it should come out relatively, I say that, these rhizomes are pressing hard to the side, should come out relatively easily, I am thinking, just because it is in my forest floor mix, which is chunkier. Yeah, there we go. All right. Oh, maybe I gave it a little bit more water than I thought yesterday. It looks pretty damp over here. Oh well, it will get watered again today. I'm not that worried about it. This plant, it is water-loving plant. Like, they grow in very marshy, boggy type conditions in, why did I just blank? It starts with a B. Borneo? Borneo, I think it's Borneo. Okay, so what we are gonna do is we are not gonna remove all of the soil from this one, unlike what we did on the last one. I do still wanna get any kind of like dead stuff like this off the top. I need to actually remove some of these old leaf sheaths down here. I am not the best about going back after the fact, because when you cut leaves off, like, sometimes it's hard to get in there at the base and you can't just pull them out right away, but then after they die and they get to this stage, you guys, you really should pull them off, because stuff like this just attracts pests and it doesn't look good. So, but I am not always the best about doing it on these clumping plants like this that it's just all super tight up in there, but they do, as you can see, after a while, you can just like easily just pull them off. So I just want to get that and some of the loose stuff off, and then we are just going to straight up either try to pull this one apart, or we're straight up just going to cut it, and we are not going to like we're not going to try to remove every single completely severed root. If we, oops, flinging stuff onto the floor. If we do have some like that, we will, like, if it's obvious, it's just hanging off the edge or whatever, yeah, we're going to pull it off. Like, come on. Like, but we're not going to try to untangle a mat like I was doing on the other one to get every single severed one off, if that makes sense. So much of this dead stuff in the middle. Okay, I might finish doing that here in a bit. I'll bore you guys with all of that. Let me just get the ones on the edge here, since we are going to be separating these out. So you can see right here, look, there's a whole nother new plantlet trying to develop here and here off of that rhizome. And if you guys can see, this rhizome is actually really kind of tight up in here in the bottom, but then you can tell, like, right here, it's a whole new point coming off, and then it's trying to extend the rhizome off here to continue around and do another plant. That is so big right there. That's so crazy. That's so cool looking. And then the one coming down here and then over here. I mean, it's just, it's going nuts. So let me see, because this is in my forest floor mix, I might have an easier time just kind of unwrapping a little bit of what's going on down here, just so we have less severed. I'm not going to try to like unwrap the whole thing, but if I can just kind of loosely untangle or unwind some, why not? The only problem I usually run into with this is at a certain point, some overlap others, and then you can't get them out without like tearing everything up. And those are pretty, the little hairs on those roots are pretty attached to that soil, so I'm probably not going to be able to do much with this without breaking. Hopefully you can see, like, I'm tugging and it's not wanting to come because the little hairs are attached so well. Probably not going to be able to do much without really breaking a lot of roots, and I don't want to do that on this one because I want to kind of show y'all just how to do it normally. But if those were kind of loosely coming off real easily, then yes, you could just like completely unwrap those so you have less loss. But we got a little bit off there. Okay, so let me see if anybody feels loose enough to just kind of tug out. I mean, it's not as root bound, obviously. At least I don't think it looks as root bound. You guys comment below and tell me, as the plant we just did. But that still doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna have an easy time just finding somewhere to pull it apart, because it is still pretty root bound. So once again, if you want to keep dividing plants to keep them one size, don't let them get this root bound before you do it if you want to have an easier time breaking them apart. Look at that. So crazy, you guys. I love it. Okay. Well, since these two are way out here on this edge, maybe we'll try to go here first. Now, if you can see, there's two little ones in here. I'm probably going to have to cut those off too. Just trying to decide, because this whole chunk right here in the middle, I think, was the original chunk. So I'm trying to decide if I want to keep either of these two as part of the original chunk or separate them off as well. Yeah, I guess we'll separate them. Okay, so I'm gonna make a cut right here. I feel like I'm cutting like a plant cake or something, you guys. It's weird. Okay, and then we're gonna make, I think, a cut right here. Really should have gotten a cutting board out. I'm just chopping in my counters, but whatever. And then we're gonna try to cut through the middle there, but before we do that, let's see if we can just possibly pull it out now that we've cut. No, there's too many roots on the bottom. Okay, so there's my cut there. Oops, just broke somebody on the other side. Be careful where I'm holding on to. Okay, there we go. Wow, that forest floor mix looks way denser on the inside than it did around the outside. Okay, so nice clean cut there. We got a bunch of little plantlets. Now, because these are all kind of slimy on the edge here like this, I do want to put that in the middle, I feel like, when I pot this back up. But let's just see if there's anything, like I said, that's loose, that is fully severed, that we know. We're just gonna take that off, but we're not gonna mess with it like we did on the other one. Okay, I think we're good. So we're just gonna straight up leave that like that. All right, now that I have access to this middle part here, we'll pull a little bit more of this crap off. Okay, now, let's see. I think we're gonna take these two off by themselves over here. So we're gonna cut right here. Or so I say. Okay. Easier said than done sometimes. No kidding, you guys. It's like a little cake slice of Schismatoglottis. All right, now this one is gonna have more loose roots that we can just readily see here. So like I said, those, if they're just like obvious, we don't want to be tugging too much in anything, but anything that's just like massively obvious like that. And then this whole rhizome down here might not be attached to anything. It should still grow though. It shouldn't die. It's got roots on it. So it should still eventually try to push back around. So I'm just gonna leave it. And I think that will be good for that one. So I think that just leaves 3 more I want to cut off of here. Now over here I want to be careful because we've got all this new growth growing here. So I kind of want to try, oh, except that's coming off of that one. Well, okay, so I want to try to cut between, oh, I just broke it. Well, that resolved that problem for me. Telling you what, you guys. Okay, so we're going to cut right here to get this one up. I'm going to try not to cut that part if I can. Okay, so there we go. There's another like big old severed bit of rhizome down here, but it still feels attached to something. So I'm not going to worry about it. A little bit of roots here that we can tell are totally severed. Just remove those. Okay. All right. So then, I don't know if that's part of that plantlet. I think it is. So I think I'm going to try to cut right through here. And you guys, this is in essence kind of like also root pruning your plant, which we have done together before. And you know plants can survive that. Now, once again, they do tend to throw a little bit of a fit sometimes, especially depending on the type of plant. See here, part of that rhizome was totally severed, so we're just gonna leave that out. But I think these two are hopefully still going to grow into something. They should. They still have roots attached to them and everything. But yeah, so just depending on the plant with root pruning, some are more sensitive and throw a bigger fit than others. I guess like the Tradescantia, we did my Tradescantia, I've done it multiple times. It doesn't care, it roots so quickly. And I think that's what it is. Like plants that just root super fast to begin with tend to do better in my experience with root pruning than plants that do not. Let's just see if we have any more super obvious loose stuff to remove. Nope, I think we're good. Okay, so the question is, I think we were going to remove this one too because it was all the way at the outside. And then I'll just keep, there's the one I accidentally snapped off. And if we look at it, I think that's part of it. I might stick this in water and see if it develops some roots. That looks like the start of a rhizome right there. So it might grow that rhizome some more and some roots in water. And if you do have part of a rhizome on a plant like this, you can propagate that part in water. But once again, the whole reason we say just do division is because the rhizome's already got roots, as you can see. But we will try this one in water and I'll update you when I update you on how these plants are doing. In like a month, I will update you on that as well. Okay, so I think this is what I'm gonna keep. Wait, no, I just said we were gonna cut this one off. And that will be the last one. Okay. Is it going to stay up? Yes. Okay, so this one, once again, there's a lot of obvious severed roots, so we will just take those ones off, and then beyond that, we are going to leave it be. Okay, so this is what's going back into the pot. I'm not going to try to remove a bunch of soil or anything, but I do just want to kind of pull off, once again, anything that is obviously loose, but a lot of this should not be loose because it was on the inside where we cut. Now I say that, but a lot of that just came off, so who knows. But I might have accidentally like tugged that apart when I was pulling something off, one of the other ones off. But all in all, that should be pretty good. Now, there's another, you can see another part of the rhizome already trying to push another plant down there, so that's good. Okay, so we're just going back into the same pot. Get the old soil out of there. There are some like roots, like dead root stuff stuck to the side there. Get that off. Okay, let me make sure it's still gonna sit low enough. Okay, yeah, we're good. All right, this is a mess, but we're just gonna work with it here. Okay, let me get this tray. Here we go. And I am just gonna put this right back in the north-facing window it's been living in. I wish I could put the setosa propagation that we did. You know what I think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put the ones that are actually true propagations that I'll be selling or giving away. I'm gonna put them in the same type of lighting for you guys, so like it's equal comparison as they're recovering. I don't know exactly where yet, but I'll let you know in the update video. Because I don't wanna put one like in a north-facing window and one in the east, and then like the one in the east does better. Maybe it's just because it was getting more light, if you know what I mean. So I want it to be an equal comparison. Okay, I put too much in here. That's what happens. I just start chatting with you guys and I don't pay attention to how much I am putting into the pot. Yeah, I think that's okay. Let's just make sure we're centered. And then we'll start filling back in. Man, I did get that way wetter than I thought. All right, so when I water this, I'm going to try to just lightly water the new soil around the plant, since that middle soil is more wet than I thought it was. I don't know, you guys. I swear I just barely put any water in it, or at least I thought I barely put any water in it yesterday. I just wanted it to stop wilting long enough for us to get to dividing it today. All right, and then we'll just decide in a second what we want to do with these other ones. If we want to pot them all up together, or just maybe a few together, or what, we'll just look at what we've got and make that call. And I don't know why I said I was mixing up our last batch of soil, because I'm gonna have to mix up some more to pot those up, but oh well. Get this evenly spread around, and this one will be good to go. Since it is still damp, I'm just gonna wait and water it after the video. Okay, good to go. I'm gonna go set this guy aside and we'll mix up what should be the last batch of soil. Okay, we got our soil, got the 4.5 inch pot, 4 inch pot, 6 inch pot. So let's just see here what we think. So we've got this guy, the guy with the flower, this one, these two little baby ones. Let's see, this is the fullest one. So I'm kind of thinking maybe not that little one, maybe this one. Maybe if we put these together, once again, I might do it this way. No, that looks better. Maybe we do these together as one, or should we do, that one's gonna be a pain to get in a pot with that big old thing, but that could be nice. So I feel like if we do this one, I kind of want to do another one in there too, to make it more full. I mean, that's not bad, right? Maybe put this in the 6 inch. I think we'll do that. And then maybe we'll pot these up either together or by themselves. I don't know. But I think this makes a nice little cluster. Ooh. Just set that down while I get this started. Definitely don't need like more propagations to sell right now, you guys. I feel like I'm overrun, but it is what it is. And I have not sold any of these before, and I have not really, since I bought this, like they popped up out of nowhere that year in the spring, like around March. I really haven't seen them that much, I feel like, since then. Well, I guess like for a while after that I saw them a lot places, but just like this past spring and like summer, I just don't feel like I've really seen them anywhere. I don't know why, because they were super like popular the year before, because we rarely get Schismatoglottis on the market here. And the Wallacei one, I saw a lot of those that year too. I feel like I haven't really seen a lot of those this year. I don't know. I guess I just haven't been out at like big box stores and plant stores in the plant section as much, because you guys know I've been trying not to like spend as much money and everything. So obviously not going to those sections of the store, not going to that store if you don't need to be at that store for something, is the way to go in that situation. So maybe that's why I feel like I just haven't seen them, is because I just haven't been exposing myself enough. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. If you've seen a lot of these or the Wallacei in stores this past spring and summer, comment below and let me know. All right, just a little bit more in here. Okay, I think that one is good to go. And that doesn't look too bad. Nice little full plant. Okay, set that over there. And let's see. I'm either gonna have to do these both together as one in a 6 inch, another 6 inch, which I will have to go grab. Or this one is the one that's gonna be like a pain because of that part. Okay, I'm just gonna go grab one more 6 inch and we will just, I think I've got enough soil. Have to make sure I have enough soil because I just realized I am now gonna be out of premium potting soil. So we've gotta make this work, but I think that'll work. So let me go grab one more 6 inch pot. Okay, good to go. And I think that's gonna look nicer anyway, because that's a little bit more full. It's kind of a little bit wonky full, if that makes sense. Maybe if we do it back to back. Yeah, I think that might look a little bit better that way, maybe. I don't know, you guys, maybe I'm just crazy. No, I guess that's fine. Just being crazy, being crazy. Speaking of crazy, I think Theo finally went and settled down somewhere, which is good because there was a lot of times I had to stop in the middle of recording this that you guys didn't see because he was just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I was like, what are you doing? I don't know. He is just, he has a mind of his own, you guys. Mind of his own. Okay, guys, future 2 hours from now, Drea here again. So my iPhone is what I use as my secondary camera. It ran out of storage in the middle of recording this. So from this point forward, you are not going to have those close-up shots, but I think it was only the last 2 minutes of the video that it stopped recording, but my apologies. Let's get back to it. All right. Your position in there. Now, granted, this is pretty tight up in here, but I'm going to be selling this to somebody, and I prefer to sell like plants that are pretty well developed and filled in the pot, as you guys know. So will they potentially have to repot it relatively soon after like I sell it, which will be, you know, a while before I will sell it, at least a month, probably a little bit longer than that, maybe 2 months before I will list it for sale, because I want to make sure that it's reestablished itself nicely. But yes, they will probably have to repot it within the next year, but I would rather sell somebody a plant that is more established like that than looks like, why is this a barely rooted plant in a giant pot of dirt, if you know what I mean. All right, I think this is gonna be just enough soil. I mean, worst case scenario, I can grab some of this that we took out of the original pot and stick it in here if I have to. I'll just try to not, and I might have to, it looks like I will have to. I'll just try not to get a lot of the dead roots if I can. It won't be a problem as long as there's just not a ton of dead root action. Like I said, some of this can die off and it'll be fine, but I just don't want to be like putting like a giant handful, if I don't have to, of dead rootage in there, and I don't really need that much more soil. So all right, just a little bit more over here. And I think, oh, that is a good to go. All right, you guys, well, it's a messy process, and just in case you're wondering, it says I've been doing this for 2 hours and 12 minutes, but of course, if I hadn't had to remove everything off of the first one, definitely would not have taken this long. Plus, I'm stopping to talk to you guys and everything. That includes time to like mix up more soil mix and everything, so you guys should be able to accomplish this hopefully much more quickly than I did filming it for you today. I am curious to see how long this video actually ends up being though. But like I said, I will film an update. Well, actually I'm gonna film like a progress videos and then an update video for you guys. You'll probably get that in maybe like 5 weeks. But until then, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And if it is past the point that I've already released the update video, you will be able to check that out next right here. Thank you so much for joining me today, you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!